The day we buried my mother, I thought the worst pain of my life was finally over. I was wrong. As I stood by her grave, my brother's wife, Sarah, walked up in front of everyone, holding a folded piece of paper and wearing a smug smile. Then, in the middle of the funeral crowd, she dropped a bomb that made every head turn. She claimed she was pregnant with my late stepfather's child, and because of that, she wanted half of my mother's $1 million farm. The air froze. People stared. My heart pounded, but not because I believed her. No, I knew something no one else in that moment could even imagine. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Emily, and I'm 33 years old. For most of my life, my mother's farm had been my safe place. It was a big stretch of land in Iowa, rolling fields, a white farmhouse with a red barn, and the smell of fresh-cut hay in summer. My dad died when I was a teenager, and years later, my mother married a man named Frank. He was a good man, at least at first. He had a quiet way about him, always fixing things around the property, always ready to help. I never imagined he would become the center of a scandal after his own death. Sarah came into our lives about 5 years ago when my younger brother, Daniel, brought her home for Thanksgiving. She was loud, flashy, and seemed to enjoy making every conversation about herself. I tried to be polite, but there was always something about her that didn't feel right. She didn't like the farm life. She complained about the smell, the dust, the work, but she liked the idea of the money it brought in. When Mom got sick last year, things changed. I moved back to the farm full-time to take care of her. Daniel visited once or twice a month, but Sarah, she rarely showed up. And when she did, she always acted like she was doing us a huge favor by being there. Mom never seemed too fond of her either, but she kept the peace for Daniel's sake. The day Mom passed away, I thought all the fighting was behind us. We had a small funeral, family, a few close friends and neighbors. I was standing by the fresh grave, still in shock, when Sarah stepped forward in her black dress that looked more like something for a cocktail party than a funeral. She had this look in her eyes, like she was about to enjoy whatever she was about to say. "I have something to share," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "Before Frank died, we were together, and I'm pregnant with his child. According to his wishes, and as per this letter he wrote me, I'm entitled to half of this farm." The crowd gasped. I saw my Aunt Linda cover her mouth. Daniel looked like he'd been slapped. My first instinct was to laugh, but I held it in. I knew Frank's will. I knew my mother's will. I had been in every meeting with her lawyer. And whatever Sarah was holding in her hand, it wasn't going to hold up against the truth. Still, I stayed quiet. Sometimes, the best thing you can do when someone lies is to let them keep talking. They usually dig their own grave deeper that way. "Emily," Sarah said, turning toward me, "I'm sorry to have to do this here, but I wanted to be honest. I think it's what Frank would have wanted." I tilted my head and forced a small smile. "Is that so?" I said. She nodded. "Yes, this farm is worth at least $1 million. And as the mother of his child, I believe I should have my rightful share." Daniel looked at me, confused and angry. "Emily, you knew about this." "No, Daniel," I said calmly. "I didn't, but I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of it." I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Some probably thought Sarah might be telling the truth. After all, it's not like I was checking Frank's every move when he was alive. But the thing was, Frank had been sick for years before he passed, and he wasn't capable of having children. Mom told me herself, and Frank confirmed it in a conversation we had once when Sarah wasn't around. I decided not to say anything yet. Instead, I wanted Sarah to feel confident enough to show me whatever fake proof she had. She held out the folded paper. "Here," she said. "Frank wrote this to me before he died. He didn't want to upset your mother, so he kept it private." I took the paper, unfolding it slowly. It looked like Frank's handwriting almost, but there were small things that felt off. The way the letters curved, the spacing, I'd seen Frank's real handwriting on dozens of repair notes he'd left around the farm. This wasn't it. "Interesting," I said, folding it back up. "We'll have the lawyer look at it." Her smile faltered just for a second, but she quickly recovered. "Fine, but don't try to drag this out, Emily. I'm not going anywhere." The rest of the funeral felt heavy. People whispered behind my back. Some avoided me. I could feel Sarah's eyes on me like she thought she'd already won. But inside, my mind was racing. Not with fear, no, with planning. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the farmhouse kitchen. The moonlight came through the old lace curtains, and I stared at the folded letter on the table. If Sarah thought she could scare me into handing over half the farm, she had no idea who she was dealing with. I picked up my phone and dialed Mom's lawyer, Mr. Jacobs. He didn't answer, it was too late, but I left him a message. "Hi, it's Emily. Something come up about the will. We need to talk as soon as possible." I hung up, poured myself a cup of coffee, and looked out the window at the barn. This farm had been in our family for generations. My great-grandfather built it with his bare hands. I wasn't about to let someone like Sarah take it away with lies. I had no idea, then, just how ugly things were about to get, or how deep her deception would go. After that night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the old farmhouse felt louder than usual. I kept hearing Sarah's voice in my head, that smug tone, as if she had already taken ownership of the farm. I kept seeing the look in Daniel's eyes, confused, maybe even believing her. That hurt more than I expected. My own brother wasn't sure whether to trust me or his wife. By morning, I had decided exactly what I needed to do. Before I confronted Sarah, I had to gather every piece of proof in my favor. My mother's will, Frank's will, any legal papers that could prove Sarah was lying. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to make sure she couldn't come back from this lie. I started with my mother's office upstairs. The room smelled like her perfume, lavender and something warm, maybe vanilla. Her wooden desk was exactly how she left it, neat but full of memories. The top drawer had family photos, some old letters, and her diary. The bottom drawer was locked. I knew the key was in the ceramic jar on the bookshelf, the one shaped like a chicken. Inside the locked drawer, I found a thick folder with all the farm's documents. My mother was always organized. Every bill, every deed, every will was in here. I pulled out her most recent will, dated just 6 months before she died. It clearly stated that the farm and all assets would go to me. There was no mention of Daniel or Sarah. It also had Mr. Jacobs' signature as the legal witness. Then I looked for Frank's will. His was much older, from years ago, but it left everything he owned to my mother. Since she had already passed, his share was now legally mine. There was no loophole for Sarah, no special condition for an unborn child. Nothing. I felt a little lighter, but I wasn't ready to celebrate yet. I needed to talk to Mr. Jacobs. When I called his office, his secretary said he was in court all day, but could meet me first thing the next morning. That meant I had the rest of the day to prepare for whatever Sarah was going to try next. I didn't have to wait long. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from her. "Sarah, I hope you're ready to do the right thing. We both know Frank loved me more than he ever loved your mother." I stared at the message, shaking my head. She was already trying to rewrite history. "Me, we'll let the legal documents decide that." "Sarah, you really want to go through this in court? Fine, but remember, the truth always comes out." The truth, huh? I couldn't help but laugh at that one. That afternoon, Daniel showed up at the farm. He didn't call ahead, just drove up the gravel driveway in his black pickup truck. I met him on the porch. "Emily," he said, avoiding my eyes, "we need to talk." I stepped aside to let him in. "Coffee." He nodded, sitting at the kitchen table while I poured 2 mugs. "Look," he started, "I don't know what's going on between you and Sarah, but she's really upset. She says you're trying to push her out of something that's rightfully hers." Rightfully hers? I set his coffee down a little harder than I meant to. "Daniel, she wasn't even in the picture when Mom bought this farm. And as for Frank, she's lying about the baby." His eyes narrowed. "How can you be so sure?" I leaned in. "Because Frank couldn't have children. And I know you probably don't want to hear this, but Mom told me herself. It's why they never had kids together. And you think it's just a coincidence that Sarah brings this up the day we bury Mom." He shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know. Sarah showed me that letter. It looks real." "Fake letters can look real, Daniel. I've already talked to Mom's lawyer. We'll see what he says tomorrow." He didn't say much after that. He just finished his coffee and left, muttering something about wanting to avoid drama. That's Daniel. When things get messy, he runs. That night, I was in the living room going through old photos when I heard tires crunching on the driveway. I peeked out the window and saw Sarah's silver SUV. She didn't get out right away. She just sat there for a few minutes, probably working up whatever act she was about to put on. When she finally came to the door, she was holding a small gift bag. "I thought I'd bring you something," she said sweetly, handing it to me. Inside was a framed photo of Frank. Just Frank, no one else. It was an odd gift for someone who supposedly just found out her husband had been cheating with the woman giving it to her. "Thank you," I said flatly. She walked in without being invited, her eyes scanning the room like she was searching for something. "This place is so old-fashioned. I'd definitely modernize it once it's mine." I smiled politely. "You're confident." She tilted her head. "I am, and you should be smart enough to take my offer. We can avoid court if you just sign over my half now." "Not going to happen," I said. Her smile faded. "Emily, you don't want to make me your enemy." I stepped closer. "Sarah, you already are." She didn't stay long after that, but as I watched her drive away, I knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, I met Mr. Jacobs at his office. He listened patiently as I told him everything. When I handed him the letter Sarah had given me, he studied it closely. "This is a forgery," he said without hesitation. "I've seen Frank's handwriting hundreds of times. The spacing, the slant, it's off. Plus, the date on this letter is 2 weeks after Frank passed away." My jaw dropped. "You're kidding." "I'm not. This is a very poor forgery, and if she tries to bring it to court, she'll be in serious trouble." I left the office feeling a mix of relief and adrenaline. I finally had proof she was lying, but I also knew Sarah wouldn't back down quietly. People like her never did. When I got home, there was a new message waiting for me. "Sarah, I hope you enjoyed your little meeting with your lawyer. It won't change anything." How did she even know I'd gone to see him? At that moment, I realized something. I wasn't just dealing with a greedy liar. I was dealing with someone who was watching me. And that meant I needed to be careful, very careful. The moment I realized Sarah was watching me, something inside me shifted. Up until then, I thought this was just about greed, a pathetic attempt to grab money and property she had no right to. But knowing she was tracking my movements, that was darker. That meant she was planning something bigger. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The old farmhouse creaked and groaned like it always did, but every shadow outside the window made my heart race. I even caught myself glancing over my shoulder while making tea. I told myself I was being paranoid, but deep down, I knew I was. The next morning, I decided to test my theory. I grabbed my coat, got in my truck, and drove toward town. But instead of heading straight to the grocery store like usual, I made a few random turns down a side street, through an alley around the block twice. And sure enough, 2 cars behind me, there it was, Sarah's silver SUV. She wasn't exactly subtle. At one point, I stopped at a gas station and watched in the rearview mirror as she parked across the street, pretending to check her phone. I walked into the gas station, bought a bottle of water, and on my way out, I waved in her direction. She froze for a second, then quickly started her engine and drove off. I couldn't help but laugh under my breath. If she wanted to play games, I could play better. Back at the farm, I decided it was time to start gathering my own kind of evidence. I pulled out my old camera and began photographing every document, every will, every deed I had found in Mom's office. I stored copies on my computer and on a flash drive, which I hid in a cookie jar in the pantry. Sarah might try to destroy papers, but she wasn't going to erase the truth. Around noon, Daniel called. "Emily, can we meet tonight? I think we need to talk again, just the 2 of us." I agreed, but a part of me worried this was Sarah's doing. Daniel was too easily influenced by her, and I had a feeling she was trying to turn him completely against me. When we met at a small diner on the edge of town, Daniel looked tired. He stirred his coffee for a long time before speaking. "Sarah says you're trying to ruin her," he said finally. I took a deep breath. Daniel, Sarah forged a letter. The date is 2 weeks after Frank died. Mr. Jacobs confirmed it's fake. He blinked, clearly surprised. She told me Frank gave it to her himself. She's lying, and she's been following me around town. I saw her this morning. He shook his head, rubbing his temples. Emily, you've always been so quick to judge her. Judge her? She's trying to steal Mom's farm, Daniel, and you're letting her drag you into it. His jaw tightened. Maybe you're just afraid of sharing. Maybe this isn't about Sarah at all. That hit me harder than I expected. You think I'm making this up? I don't know what to think, he admitted. We didn't talk much after that. He paid for his coffee, muttered a quick goodbye, and left. I sat there for a while, staring into my cup, wondering how my own brother could be so blind. When I got back home, it was already dark. I parked in the driveway and immediately noticed something strange. The back door to the farmhouse was slightly open. I froze. I always lock the back door, always. Slowly, I walked around the side of the house, my phone ready to call the police. When I stepped inside, the first thing I noticed was that nothing looked obviously stolen, but something felt off. Then I saw it. The folder of legal documents I had left on the kitchen counter was gone. Panic surged through me. I ran upstairs to my mother's office. The locked drawer was still closed, but when I opened it, the will was missing. Every original copy gone. I sank into the chair, trying to think. There was no sign of forced entry. Whoever came in had a key, or knew exactly where I kept the spare. And the only people who knew that were me, Daniel, and Sarah. I spent the next hour checking every hiding spot. Thankfully, the flash drive with the copies was still safe in the pantry cookie jar. At least I still had proof. But the fact that Sarah had crossed the line into breaking into the house, it changed everything. The next morning, I drove straight to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Miller had known our family for decades. He listened carefully as I explained everything, the fake letter, the following, the break-in. I can't prove she was the one who broke in, he said slowly, but if you've got evidence of forgery, that's a serious offense. And if she's been following you, that could count as harassment. He agreed to keep an eye on things, but I could tell he was reluctant to get in the middle of family drama. That night, as I sat in the living room with a cup of tea, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. Emily, a woman's voice said, you don't know me, but you need to know something about Sarah. I sat up straight. Who is this? My name, Kelly. I used to be friends with her. We worked together a few years ago. She's done this before. What do you mean? I asked, my voice sharp. She finds men with money, gets close to them, and then makes up stories to take what she wants. Last time she claimed she was pregnant too, but it wasn't true. She got caught, but the guy settled just to make her go away. I felt my stomach twist. Can you prove any of this? I have some messages, Kelly said. If you want them, meet me tomorrow at the coffee shop on Main Street, but don't tell Sarah. After I hung up, I just sat there in the dark, staring at the phone. This was the missing piece I needed. If Kelly's story was true, Sarah's whole plan would fall apart. But I also knew, if Sarah even suspected I was talking to someone from her past, things could turn dangerous very quickly. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind kept going over the phone call with Kelly, wondering if she was telling the truth or trying to trick me. But something about her voice, it didn't sound fake. It sounded tired, like someone who had been through this kind of mess before. By morning, I decided I was going to meet her. If she really had proof about Sarah's past, it could change everything. I left the farm around 9 and headed toward Main Street. I parked a few blocks away from the coffee shop, just in case Sarah was watching. Inside, the place smelled like fresh pastries and cinnamon. I spotted Kelly right away, mid-30s, brown hair pulled into a messy bun, and eyes that darted around like she was expecting trouble. She waved me over. You must be Emily, she said. I nodded, sitting across from her. You said you know something about Sarah. Kelly glanced around before pulling out her phone. I used to be her friend. Well, I thought we were friends. We worked at the same marketing firm in Chicago. She was always chasing guys with money, never anyone broke, never anyone normal. Then she met this older guy, divorced, owned a few properties. Within weeks, she told him she was pregnant. I leaned forward. Was she? Kelly smirked. Not even close. She bought fake ultrasound pictures online, claimed she had to rest and couldn't work. The guy started giving her money, thousands. When she was finally caught, she claimed she'd lost the baby. He never pressed charges because he didn't want the scandal. She took the money and disappeared. And then I saw her face in a Facebook post a year later, married to your brother. My stomach turned. Do you have proof of this? Kelly nodded, scrolling through her phone. She showed me screenshots of old texts between Sarah and her, where Sarah bragged about the scam. There were also receipts for the fake ultrasound pictures. This is gold, I whispered. Kelly sighed. Be careful. When she found out I knew too much, she made my life hell. Spread rumors at work, turned friends against me. She doesn't care who she destroys as long as she gets what she wants. I saved copies of everything onto my phone and thanked her. As I was leaving, Kelly grabbed my arm. One more thing, don't let her know you have this. Not yet. She'll go into attack mode if she senses you've got an advantage. I promised I wouldn't, but deep down, I already knew keeping this secret from Sarah wouldn't be easy. On my drive back to the farm, I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting to see her silver SUV behind me, but the road was clear. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah was never far away. When I got home, Daniel's truck was in the driveway. He was sitting on the porch, arms crossed, looking like he'd been waiting for hours. Where were you? He asked the second I got out of the car. I didn't answer directly. Why? Did Sarah send you to check on me? His face darkened. She's my wife, Emily. She's worried. About what? That I might be talking to someone who knows the truth about her. He shook his head. You're paranoid, and you're tearing this family apart. No, Daniel, I said firmly. Sarah is tearing this family apart, and one day soon you're going to see it for yourself. He muttered something under his breath and left without another word. Watching his truck disappear down the road made me feel hollow. I'd always been close to my brother, but Sarah was poisoning him against me. Later that afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table going over the screenshots from Kelly again. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from Facebook. Sarah had tagged me in a post. I opened it and felt my blood boil. The post read, "Sad to see family turn against you, but greed changes people. All I ever wanted was what Frank promised me, but some people would rather lie than share. Truth will come out." There were already comments from distant relatives, some siding with her, some defending me. It was exactly the kind of public drama she wanted. I took a deep breath and reminded myself not to engage online. That's what she wanted, to drag me into a public fight. Instead, I needed to focus on the bigger picture, proving her fraud legally. By the way, if you're still listening to this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to see how far my story has reached. That evening, I called Mr. Jacobs and told him about Kelly. He agreed the screenshots were strong evidence and suggested we hold on to them for now while he prepared a case. But Sarah must have sensed something was shifting, because the next day she showed up at the farm with a man I'd never seen before. "This is my lawyer," she said with a smug smile. "We're here to give you one last chance to settle this before we take it to court." Her lawyer looked like he was straight out of a TV drama, perfect suit, expensive watch, and a condescending smile. "Ms. Williams," he began, "my client is willing to accept $400,000 for her share of the farm. This is a generous offer considering the emotional damages she's suffered." I almost laughed. Her share? She doesn't have a share. And as for emotional damages, maybe she should consider the damage she's causing to everyone else. Sarah's smile tightened. "So you're refusing?" "Absolutely," I said. Her lawyer sighed, handed me a business card, and they left. I watched them drive away, feeling both nervous and exhilarated. She was getting desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. That night, I got another call from Kelly. "I forgot to tell you, Sarah keeps a little black notebook. She writes down everything, plans, dates, even people she's targeting. If you can get your hands on it, you'll have more than enough to bury her in court. I didn't sleep much after that. The thought of that notebook consumed me. If it really existed, it could be the final nail in Sarah's coffin. But getting it, that was going to be dangerous. The morning after Sarah's threat, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing nonstop. At first, I thought it was Kelly checking in. But when I grabbed it, I saw over a dozen notifications, texts from friends, neighbors, even a few people I barely knew. "Emily, are you okay?" I saw the post Sarah made. "This is crazy. You should respond before people start believing her." My stomach sank. I opened Facebook and there it was, Sarah's latest stunt. She posted a long, dramatic story claiming I was harassing her day and night, breaking into her house, and trying to steal her unborn child's inheritance. She even posted a blurry photo of me leaving her driveway, obviously taken from a distance. The comments were a mix, some defending me, others asking why I would do something like that. I could feel my blood pressure rising with every word I read. This wasn't just about the farm anymore. She was trying to destroy my reputation in the entire community. I called Kelly immediately. "Did you see what she posted?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Yeah," Kelly said. "Don't respond online. That's what she wants. Screenshot everything and send it to your lawyer. We're going to use this against her." Mr. Jacobs agreed. "This is perfect evidence of her harassment," he said. "It shows she's trying to manipulate public opinion before the case even begins. Judges don't like that." But even knowing that, it still hurt. These were people I'd grown up around, neighbors, church members, old friends, and now some of them looked at me like I was a criminal. The next few days were tense. Everywhere I went, grocery store, post office, even the gas station, I felt eyes on me. Some people whispered, others avoided me altogether. Sarah's poison was spreading fast. Then came the letter. It arrived by certified mail, addressed to me personally. Inside was an official notice. Sarah had filed for an emergency restraining order against me. She claimed she feared for her safety and her child's future. I took the papers straight to Mr. Jacobs. He read them carefully, then looked up with a smirk. "She's overplaying her hand. We'll fight this and win. And when we do, it'll damage her credibility in court." But winning wasn't my only concern anymore. I was starting to see just how far Sarah was willing to go. If she could twist my every move into something ugly, what else was she capable of? 2 nights later, I got my answer. It was almost midnight when I heard a noise outside, a car engine, then doors slamming. I peeked through the window and saw 2 sheriff's deputies walking toward my porch. My heart dropped. One of them knocked. "Ma'am, we received a call about a disturbance here," he said. "Your sister-in-law reported hearing screams coming from your house." I was speechless. "What? I've been sitting in bed reading." They looked around, saw nothing, and left. But it was clear, Sarah was escalating. If she could get the police to show up at my door in the middle of the night, it was only a matter of time before she tried something worse. The next morning, Kelly came over. "Emily, you need to start recording everything. Every interaction, every phone call, every time you see her near the farm. She's building a fake case against you, and we're going to turn it back on her." So I did. I bought a small voice recorder and kept it with me at all times. I set up security cameras around the house, even one pointing at the driveway. If Sarah wanted a war, I was ready. Days passed, and I kept my distance from her, hoping she'd get bored. But one afternoon, I caught her at the edge of the property, taking photos of the barn. I walked out to meet her, my phone recording in my pocket. "What are you doing here, Sarah?" I asked. She smiled sweetly, like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. "Just documenting what will soon be mine." I laughed. "Keep dreaming." She leaned closer. "I don't dream, Emily, I plan, and my plans always work." I let her walk away, knowing every word was now on tape. That night, I sent the recording to Mr. Jacobs. He called within minutes. "Emily, this is gold. She just admitted her intentions. Combined with the notebook and everything else, we've got her cornered." For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this nightmare was finally turning in my favor. But I also knew something else. Sarah wasn't done yet. People like her never quit until they've either won or been completely destroyed. And I was determined to make sure the one destroyed would be her. The day of the court hearing felt like a storm was brewing, even though the sky outside was clear. I woke up early, dressed in my best navy blue suit, and sat at the kitchen table staring at my coffee. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Kelly arrived to drive me there. "This is it," she said softly. "Today we end this." When we got to the courthouse, Sarah was already inside, sitting with her lawyer. She was wearing a black dress, her hair perfectly styled, looking like she was ready for a TV interview. She gave me a smug little smile, the same one she'd worn at the funeral. The judge entered, and we all stood. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Sarah's lawyer went first. He painted a picture of a grieving woman carrying the child of the deceased, who was being harassed and threatened by a jealous sister-in-law. He even waved the supposed love letter around like it was sacred evidence. Then it was our turn. Mr. Jacobs stood, calm as ever. "Your Honor," he began, "the truth is not always as it first appears. Today we will show you not only that my client, Emily, never harassed Sarah, but that Sarah's entire claim is built on lies." He started by showing the court the DNA results. The test proved that Sarah's unborn child could not possibly be my late stepfather's. The father was someone else entirely. Sarah's face stayed frozen, but I could see her jaw tighten. Then came the love letter. Mr. Jacobs called in a handwriting expert who testified that the letter was a forgery. Sarah had written it herself. The expert even showed side-by-side samples of Sarah's own handwriting from social media posts. The judge's expression started to change. But the real blow came when Mr. Jacobs played the recording I had made at the edge of the property. Everyone in the courtroom could hear Sarah's voice saying, "Just documenting what will soon be mine." And then, "I don't dream, Emily, I plan, and my plans always work." There was a gasp in the room. Sarah's lawyer shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Finally, Mr. Jacobs brought out the little black notebook Kelly had found. Page after page showed Sarah's schemes, timelines, fake pregnancy details, even notes about how she'd try to make Emily snap so she could get a restraining order. When the judge asked Sarah if she wanted to respond, she stayed silent. Her eyes darted around the room, but she said nothing. It didn't take long for the judge to make a ruling. "This court finds that Sarah's claims are fraudulent. The will stands as written. The farm remains solely in Emily's possession. Furthermore, this court orders Sarah to cease all contact with Emily immediately." I felt a wave of relief crash over me. My legs were shaking, but for the first time in months, I could breathe. As we left the courtroom, Sarah brushed past me, her face pale. "This isn't over," she hissed. I stopped and looked her dead in the eye. "Yes, it is, for you." Outside, Kelly hugged me so hard I almost lost my balance. "You did it," she said. "No," I replied. "We did it." The next few weeks were quiet. No more late-night police visits, no more fake posts online. Sarah disappeared from the community, moving 2 towns over. People began to apologize for believing her lies. Slowly, my life returned to normal. One evening, I stood on the porch of the farmhouse, looking out at the land my mother had loved so much. The sun was setting, casting golden light over the fields. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. I realized then that Sarah had tried to take more than just property. She'd tried to take my sense of security, my connection to my family, even my dignity. But she hadn't won. I still had my home, I still had my friends, and most importantly, I still had the truth. This was the end of her game, and the beginning of my freedom.